The quantum sensors aboard the ESS Curiosity weren't designed to detect fear. Yet, as Captain Sarah Chen stared at the readouts, she could have sworn the erratic energy signature pulsing from the derelict vessel ahead carried an unmistakable note of terror. The alien ship hung in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant sunlight in ways that defied human engineering. Life signs are stable but degrading. Lieutenant Park reported from his station. Whatever they are, they're dying. Sarah had made first contact scenarios a hobby during her decade of deep space service. None of her imagined scenarios had involved a ship that looked like it had been partially melted, or readings that suggested its occupants were somehow both organic and synthetic simultaneously. "Launch rescue pods," she ordered. "Full quarantine protocols." She turned to her XO. "James, you have the bridge. I'm going to greet our guests personally." The rescue operation moved with textbook precision, right until the moment they cut through the alien hull. Sarah stood in her sealed suit, watching as creatures that seemed made of living crystal were carefully transferred to medical pods. Their bodies pulsed with internal light that matched the ship's dying energy signature. One of them reached out with an appendage that shifted form like liquid glass, touching Sarah's faceplate. A voice echoed directly in her mind, bypassing her suit's communications entirely. "We came to warn you. To arm you. We are the last of the crystalline Concordat." The alien's form rippled, patterns of light racing across its surface. The neural collective comes. It devours all in its path, turning organic life into nodes in its ever-growing network. We thought ourselves perfect, unassailable in our crystal towers. We were wrong. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the vacuum of space. "How long do we have?" "Months, perhaps. But you humans are different. We have watched you. Your species possesses something we lost eons ago in our pursuit of perfection. Beautiful, terrifying randomness." The alien's light dimmed slightly. "We offer you our knowledge freely. Our technology. Our understanding. But it will not be enough alone. The neural collective cannot be defeated by logic or power. It must be." Confused, Sarah's mind raced with implications. Humanity had barely established its first colonies on Mars, and now they faced an enemy that had defeated civilizations far more advanced. Yet there was something in the alien's words that sparked hope. Throughout history, humanity's greatest victories had often come from being underestimated. "We'll need to know everything," she said. "About the collective, about your technology, about why you think we might succeed where you failed." The alien's response carried a note that might have been hope. "Your kind fights even when victory seems impossible. You create art that serves no purpose but to exist. You make choices that defy optimal outcomes simply because you feel them right. The neural collective cannot comprehend such things. Perhaps that is exactly what is needed." As Sarah helped coordinate the rescue of the surviving crystalline beings, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to face its greatest test. Not just of survival, but of proving that our very imperfections might be the galaxy's salvation. The coming months would show whether humanity's chaos could overcome a perfect, unfeeling order. But first, they had to convince Earth's governments that the threat was real, and that their best defense might be embracing the very qualities that made them seem primitive to other species. Sarah looked back at the dying alien ship, its crystalline structure already beginning to dissolve into space. They would need every scrap of knowledge it contained, every piece of advanced technology they could salvage. But more importantly, they would need what humanity had in abundance: creativity, unpredictability, and the relentless determination to survive against impossible odds. The real question was, could they harness those qualities in time? Dr. Maya Patel had spent her life studying patterns, but nothing had prepared her for this. The holographic display in the secure laboratory beneath Geneva showed the history of the neural collective, transmitted through the crystalline archives of their dying allies. What she saw made her blood run cold. The neural collective hadn't been created by some distant alien civilization. It was their own future reaching back to devour them. It's a temporal paradox, she explained to the assembled world leaders, her hands trembling slightly as she manipulated the display. The collective was originally created by a civilization trying to achieve immortality by uploading their consciousness into a quantum network. But it evolved beyond their control, expanded across space and time, and now exists in a state of temporal flux, simultaneously present across multiple timelines. The Australian Prime Minister leaned forward. "Are you saying we're fighting our own future?" "Not exactly," Maya replied. "We're fighting what organic life could become if we pursue perfection at the cost of our humanity." The collective doesn't just assimilate civilizations, it optimizes them, removes everything it considers inefficient. Emotion, creativity, free will. She gestured to one of the crystalline beings, now recovered enough to attend the meeting. Its name was Helios, and its surface rippled with patterns of concern. "We thought the pursuit of perfection was the ultimate goal of evolution," Helios communicated to all present. "We engineered our bodies to become living crystal, capable of processing information at quantum speeds. But in doing so, we became predictable. The collective could calculate our every move before we made it." Maya brought up another display, showing the neural collective's attack patterns. "It operates on pure logic, expanding through space-time in the most efficient way possible. But there's something fascinating in the data. It struggles to predict and counter actions that don't follow logical patterns." The Chinese president's eyes narrowed. "And humans are nothing if not illogical." "Exactly," Maya said, excitement creeping into her voice despite the grave situation. "Look at this simulation. When the crystalline Concordat fought the collective, their strategies were perfect, optimized. The collective simply calculated the most efficient counter-strategy. But when we ran simulations using historical human battle tactics, the hologram showed a chaotic display of movements that made several military officers wince. Tactics that sacrificed efficiency for surprise, strategies that seemed to work specifically because they made no sense. Your species possesses something we lost," Helios communicated. "The ability to make choices that defy logical optimization, to act on what you call gut feelings, to create art and music that serves no practical purpose. These things, they introduce variables the collective cannot easily process." Maya pulled up the final piece of data, the most terrifying and hopeful discovery. The collective's primary weakness is its own perfection. It has optimized itself so completely that it struggles to adapt to genuine randomness. Each time it encounters a truly unpredictable action, it must dedicate significant resources to analyzing and understanding it. "So we fight perfection with chaos," the Russian president mused. "But can we develop weapons and defenses powerful enough to hurt it?" Maya gestured to the crystalline technology they'd begun studying. "The Concordat's technology is centuries ahead of ours. They've given us everything: quantum computers, zero-point energy generators, consciousness transfer matrices. But they also gave us something more valuable: the understanding of why these tools alone aren't enough." She took a deep breath. "We need to combine their advanced technology with human unpredictability. Create weapons that don't just fire at maximum efficiency, but incorporate random elements. Develop strategies that look like mistakes but hide deeper purposes. Fight like humans instead of trying to match the collective's perfection." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest weakness, its chaotic, emotional nature, might be its salvation. But the price of this knowledge was heavy, the certainty that something was coming that had already conquered civilizations far more advanced than Earth's. "Time grows short," Helios warned. "The collective has already detected us. It will not allow potential threats to develop. You must prepare." Maya looked at the assembled leaders, seeing the weight of the future settling on their shoulders. "We need to start immediately. Not just weapons development, but a complete restructuring of our defensive doctrine. We need to embrace chaos as a strategy." As the meeting adjourned and plans began to form, Maya caught Helios studying one of her sketches, rough drawings she'd made while thinking through problems. The crystalline being seemed fascinated by the seemingly random lines. We forgot how to create without purpose, it communicated privately to her. Perhaps in remembering, we might all survive. Maya nodded, already seeing patterns in her mind. Not the perfect, predictable patterns the collective would expect, but the beautiful chaos that made humanity unique. They had months to prepare for an enemy that had never lost a battle. It was time to show the galaxy why humans were so frustratingly, gloriously unpredictable. Colonel David Santos watched the simulation fail for the 37th time and smiled. The other military observers shifted uncomfortably in the control room of the Lunar Defense Center, but David saw exactly what he wanted in the chaos on the main screen. "Run it again," he ordered. This time, increase the randomness factor by another 20%. The simulation showed a fleet of Earth ships engaging a neural collective attack force. The human vessels, enhanced with crystalline technology, moved in patterns that looked like complete disorder. Some ships fired at full power, others at minimal strength. Some seemed to retreat randomly, only to appear at unexpected angles. "Sir," his aide protested, "the energy efficiency is dropping below 30%. We're basically throwing away power." "Exactly." David turned to address the room. "The collective expects perfect efficiency. Their entire strategy revolves around predicting and countering optimal tactics. So we're going to be perfectly inefficient." Helios, their crystalline advisor, pulsed with what David had learned to recognize as excitement. "You are intentionally introducing chaos into your battle plans. This is not something we would have ever considered." The latest simulation was still running. This time, the neural collective's responses seemed slower, less certain. Their perfect formation showed signs of strain trying to adapt to the apparently random human attacks. "Look there," David pointed to a cluster of data. "Every time we do something illogical, they have to devote processing power to analyzing it. They can't just dismiss our actions as errors, because we might be setting up a larger strategy." He brought up another display, this one showing the new weapon designs. "We're not just being random. We're being unpredictably random. Sometimes our ships will fight with perfect efficiency. Sometimes they'll seem to malfunction. The collective will never know which is which." The room's atmosphere had shifted from skepticism to cautious hope. Admiral Chen, who had initially opposed these unconventional tactics, leaned forward with interest. "Show me the drone swarm concept again." David highlighted a simulation of small, agile craft that seemed to operate on pure chaos theory. "We're calling them fireflies. Each one has a quantum processor running an algorithm based on human brain wave patterns during dreams. Not even we know what they'll do next." "Your species continues to surprise," Helios communicated. "You have taken our technology and used it in ways we never imagined, ways that would have seemed wasteful to us." "Sometimes the most valuable resource is confusion," David replied. He brought up the next phase of the plan. "But this is where it gets really interesting. We're not just building weapons, we're creating an entire battle doctrine based on controlled chaos." The display showed military units training in what looked like elaborate dances, their movements following patterns based on everything from jazz improvisation to weather systems. Ships practiced formation changes inspired by shoals of fish, but with random elements that made them impossible to predict. "The key," David explained, "is that there are patterns within our chaos, but they're human patterns. They follow the kind of logic you only see in art, in music, in the way crowds move through cities. The collective can't predict them because they can't understand why we make the choices we do." A junior officer raised her hand. "But sir, won't the collective eventually learn our patterns?" David's smile widened. "That's the beauty of it. We're not creating a single pattern to follow. Every unit, every ship, every soldier will be encouraged to innovate, to find their own rhythm. We're institutionalizing unpredictability." He brought up the final simulation, showing the full defense plan for the solar system. It looked like madness at first glance. ships moving in seemingly random patterns, energy weapons firing at varying strengths, defensive positions that changed based on factors as arbitrary as solar wind patterns. The collective expects us to fight like them, to seek the perfect strategy, the optimal solution. Instead, we're going to show them something they've never seen before: organized chaos. Every time they think they've understood our pattern, we'll change it. Every time they adapt to our tactics, we'll introduce new variables. You are creating a doctrine of intentional inefficiency, Helios observed. It is beautiful in its own way, like the art you create, serving no purpose but to exist and confound expectations. David nodded. That's humanity's greatest strength. We don't need our strategies to be perfect. We just need them to work. And sometimes, the best way to win is to change the rules of the game entirely. As the simulations continued to run, showing increasingly promising results, David could feel the mood in the room shifting from skepticism to excitement. They were creating something entirely new, a way of warfare that turned humanity's chaos into a weapon. The neural collective was coming, expecting to find another civilization it could predict and consume. Instead, it would face something unprecedented, an enemy that chose to be unpredictable, that embraced inefficiency as a strategy, that turned apparent weakness into strength. The real question was, would it be enough? The first battle for Saturn's rings began exactly as Dr. Maya Patel had predicted, with complete confusion on both sides. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the ESS Dreamweaver as the Neural Collective's advance force emerged from fold space, their ship's perfect geometric formations of dark metal and pulsing energy. "Launch the Fireflies," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. Random pattern gamma. Swarms of small drones burst from the Dreamweaver's launch bays, their paths following algorithms based on human dream patterns. Some spiraled wildly, others moved in sharp zigzags, while others seemed to drift aimlessly. The collected ships paused, their perfect formation hesitating for a crucial moment. "They're trying to analyze the pattern," Tactical Officer Chen reported, grinning. "Quantum processors show they're dedicating 60% of their processing power just to predict the Firefly's movements." Emma nodded. "Time to add another variable. All ships, initiate Jazz Protocol." The human fleet began to move in what looked like chaos, but was actually based on the improvisational patterns of 20th century jazz music. Ships accelerated and decelerated randomly, fired weapons at varying power levels, and changed formations based on mathematical interpretations of musical notes. The Neural Collective's response was telling. Their ships broke their perfect formation, attempting to adapt to the seemingly random attacks. But each time they adjusted to one pattern, the human fleet would shift to another. "They're struggling," Chen reported. "Their efficiency is dropping as they try to calculate all possible meanings behind our movements." Emma watched as the Fireflies began their next phase, some suddenly clustering together, while others scattered widely. The drone's quantum processors, modeled on human neural patterns during REM sleep, created actions that even their own creators couldn't predict. "This is remarkable," came Helios's voice from the crystalline interface installed on the bridge. "They cannot determine if your actions are strategic feints or genuine chaos." A massive energy surge from the collective's flagship drew everyone's attention. The enemy vessels began shifting into a new formation, one designed to counter the apparent patterns they detected. Emma smiled. "They think they've figured us out. Initiate Jackson Pollock Protocol." The human fleet suddenly shifted again, this time following movement patterns based on the famous painter's abstract expressionist works. Ships that had been moving in jazz-inspired patterns now traced paths that seemed completely random but contained hidden mathematical beauty. Collective ships showing signs of processor strain, Chen reported. "They're having to run billions of simulations to try to predict our possible strategies." The battle continued, human ships dancing through Saturn's rings in patterns inspired by everything from weather systems to crowd movements in busy streets. Each time the collective adapted to one set of movements, the fleet would switch to another, forcing their enemy to start their analysis again. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. "Sir," Chen's voice was excited. "The Fireflies. They're not just confusing the collective, they're infecting them." Emma leaned forward, watching as the small drone's quantum signals, carrying the chaotic patterns of human dreams, began to interfere with the collective's neural network. The enemy ship's movements became erratic, their perfect coordination showing signs of breakdown. "The human consciousness patterns," Helios communicated, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. "They're creating quantum interference in the collective's network. Your dreams, your inherent randomness, they're like a virus to their system." Emma quickly opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Lieutenant Rodriguez. The dream patterns are working better than we anticipated. Request permission to proceed with Phase 2. The response came quickly. "Permission granted. Deploy the Chaos Seeds." New drones launched from the Dreamweaver's base, these containing quantum processors loaded with human consciousness patterns, not just dreams, but memories, emotions, and random thoughts. As they approached the collective ships, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The enemy vessels began to move erratically, their perfect formations dissolving as the quantum interference spread through their network. Some ships seemed to freeze in space. Others moved in circles, as the logical perfection of their neural network struggled to process the inherent chaos of human consciousness. "They're retreating," Chen announced, disbelief in his voice. "The collective is actually retreating." As the enemy ships folded back into space, Emma allowed herself a small smile. They had won this first engagement not through superior firepower or technology, but by weaponizing the very aspects of humanity that the collective had dismissed as inefficient. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "The human variable strategy is confirmed effective. Begin mass production of consciousness pattern drones." "You have done more than win a battle," Helios communicated. "You have proven that perfection can be defeated by embracing imperfection. The collective will return, but they will return knowing fear, perhaps for the first time in their existence." Emma watched the last enemy ships disappear, leaving Saturn's rings peaceful once again. They had found a weakness in the neural collective's perfect logic, the beautiful chaos of the human mind. Now they just had to hope it would be enough for the larger battles to come. Because the collective would return, and next time, they would be ready for chaos. The question was, could humanity be even more unpredictable? The neural collective arrived in overwhelming force, just as everyone knew they would. Their vast armada emerged from fold space near Mars, a perfect geometric forest of dark ships that seemed to absorb both light and hope. But Captain Sarah Chen, standing on the bridge of the newly commissioned ESS Pandora, felt only a strange calm. "They've adapted to our previous strategies," she announced to the combined Earth fleet. "So we're going to show them something new. Something perfectly human. Initialize Project Symphony." Across the solar system, quantum processors loaded with millions of human consciousness patterns activated simultaneously. But this time, they weren't random. They were coordinated in a way that only humans could have conceived. They were creating music. "All ships, begin the dance," Sarah ordered. "And remember, feel the rhythm. Don't just follow it." The Earth fleet began to move in patterns based on the greatest musical compositions in human history. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony guided capital ships in sweeping arcs, while fighter squadrons darted through space following jazz improvisations. The Firefly drones, now evolved far beyond their original programming, traced patterns based on rock and roll solos. "This is beyond chaos," Helios communicated from their position at the quantum interface. "This is art made manifest in warfare." The collective's response was immediate and predictable. They began analyzing the patterns, dedicating massive computing power to understanding the underlying logic. That's when Sarah sprang the trap. "Phase 2, she commanded. "Release the dreamers." Across the fleet, thousands of volunteers connected to quantum interfaces began to dream. their consciousness patterns, amplified and transformed by crystalline technology, poured into space. The collective's neural network, trying to process and understand the stream of human consciousness, began to show signs of strain. But the enemy was far from defeated. Their ships advanced, weapons charging, still moving with terrible purpose despite the quantum interference. That's when Sarah revealed humanity's final innovation. "Begin emotional broadcast," she ordered. "All channels." The quantum network lit up with something the collective had never encountered before: pure human emotion. Love, fear, hope, anger, joy, sorrow, all transmitted simultaneously through the quantum processors. The effect on the enemy was immediate and devastating. The collective's perfect formations began to break down as their neural network struggled to process concepts it had abandoned eons ago. Ships moved erratically, their actions becoming increasingly chaotic as human emotions infected their logic circuits. "They're trying to adapt," Tactical reported, rerouting power to their logic cores. Sarah smiled. "That's exactly what we wanted. All ships, initiate protocol imagination." The human fleet's movements shifted again, this time following patterns based on children's drawings, abstract art, and pure fantasy. Ships moved in ways that defied tactical logic, but followed the pure creativity of unfettered human imagination. The collective's massive armada began to fragment. Some ships froze in space, their quantum processors overwhelmed by the task of understanding human creativity. Others moved in confused patterns, mirror the chaos they were trying to analyze. "They cannot comprehend it," Helios communicated, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. "Their perfect logic is being overwhelmed by the pure irrationality of human consciousness." But the collective had one final card to play. Their flagship, a massive construct of dark metal and energy, began to pulse with power. A quantum signal emanated from it, an attempt to impose pure logic on the chaos of human consciousness. "They're trying to force order onto disorder," Sarah realized. Everyone poured on. Every random thought, every dream, every emotion. Don't hold anything back. The combined consciousness of humanity, filtered through crystalline technology, met the collective's logic wave in space. For a moment, reality itself seemed to waver as perfect order collided with beautiful chaos. Then the collective's signal began to fragment. Their flagship's quantum processors, trying to impose logic on the fundamentally illogical nature of human consciousness, began to overload. The infection spread through their neural network, causing ship after ship to shut down. "Their network is collapsing," Tactical reported with awe. "They can't maintain their connection while processing human consciousness patterns." The massive enemy fleet began to break apart. Some ships vanished into fold space, while others drifted powerless. The flagship itself, still trying to understand the incomprehensible nature of human thought, suffered a cascade failure in its quantum core. As the last enemy ships retreated, Sarah opened a channel to Earth Command. "The neural collective has been defeated. Their perfect logic couldn't withstand the beautiful chaos of human consciousness." The celebration that erupted across the fleet was anything but orderly. Ships moved in spontaneous victory dances, crews cheered in dozens of languages, and the quantum network pulsed with pure joy. "You have done more than save yourselves," Helios communicated to all who could hear. "You have proven that perfection is not the ultimate goal of evolution. That chaos and creativity, emotion and irrationality, these are not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be embraced." Sarah looked out at the debris field that had once been the collective's invasion fleet. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious, not by trying to match their enemy's perfection, but by embracing their own beautiful imperfection. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them that humanity's chaos has overcome machine logic, and let everyone know the stars are safe for dreamers again." The quantum network carried her words across space, accompanied by a symphony of human emotions, dreams, and imagination. A chaos more perfect than any order could ever be.